Hey folks, this is Dale Davidson. Glad you're here today. Today's video is potential cuts to VA compensation, and this is a follow-up to our video, the government is trying to reduce your VA benefits, okay? So and by the way, before I get into that, over 95,000 views to that video, so thank you. You guys are awesome. I have a lot of comments though that I want to address, and that I was trying to scare people. People call it fear mongering. No, okay? My whole purpose for making that video was to educate everyone on what is happening in Washington, D.C., what is being said, what's being tossed around as it impacts veterans, their spouses, and dependents. I am not trying to scare anybody. My whole purpose is to say, look, YouTube universe, veterans, and everybody, we've got to be aware of what's happening out there. So the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, was just giving Congress options on how to reduce our budget deficit. And boy, it is a whopper, $16 trillion plus, okay? So many want to blame veterans programs for this deficit spending, but these folks don't recognize the following. There was an 11% increase, $132 billion, okay, in the mandatory spending programs such as Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I'm all for those, okay? We've got to keep those programs solvent, okay? But there was also a 41% increase, or $90 billion with a B, increase in net interest payments on our deficit. We've got to do something, okay? There was a 75% increase in the Department of Education programs, largely due to costs associated with the extension of the pause on student loan debts. And there was $29 billion to the FDIC spending due to covering deposits, for instance, of the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank failures. And there's going to be more bank failures too, okay? And then there was a 65% increase in international assistance programs, primarily because of Ukraine. So look, the veterans is just a drop in the bucket, and let me demonstrate that. Over the last 5 years, the VA handled an average of a little over 5 million veterans cases. That's an average increase of 4.29% with an average payout of $19,439 per month. That's about a 6.55% increase per year. Now, for survivors of vets, the VA only handled an average of about 444,000 cases, so an average increase of 3.34% per year, with an average payout of $18,400 per year. So that was an average increase of 6.97%. So looking at the numbers, blaming veterans benefit programs for the deficit is just plain dishonest, and luckily the VA secretary is on the side of veterans and their spouses, okay? But make no mistake, there's a push to reduce VA disability benefits and payments, or to make them tougher to qualify, okay? One reduction that's getting some attention is the VA's compensation means-based test, meaning wealthier vets, their benefits may be reduced or even eliminated. Now, remember, compensation, there is no means-based test now, okay? But I did a previous video, that government is trying to reduce your benefits, okay? And I discussed the impact of this means-based testing. So let's explore that a little bit more. Now, under the CBO report, which is only their opinion or suggestion to Congress, so for every additional $2 of gross household income, that's the veteran, the spouse, they have anybody in the household that's making any kind of income, that's gross household income. So for every $2 of gross household income, disability would decrease by $1. So under that phase out, veterans whose gross household income was $170,000 or higher, for 2023, that's this year, okay, and who would have received the average annual payment would no longer receive any compensation from the VA in 2024. So let me get this straight. I was injured because I was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam, and I have suffered from my injuries, prostate cancer, whatever it is. And so now, just because I'm got other assets or other income, I'm being penalized. Or I was in the service and I stepped on an IED, and now I have 2 artificial legs, and so I'm technically 100% disabled, so I can't. But I was injured, but because I'm making more than $170,000 in gross household income in my house, then I'll get nothing for my injury. That's not right. Just to let you know, that's not right. Okay? So the CBO proposal is wrong in so many fronts. Number one, it fails to take into consideration the cost of living of the different areas of the country. For instance, it costs more to live in Los Angeles and Miami, Florida, Honolulu, Hawaii, than it does smaller places. Let's talk like Hickory, North Carolina, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Huntsville, Alabama. Okay, those 3, Hickory, Green Bay, and Huntsville, were tagged in a recent article of the least expensive places to live. Even the IRS considers differences in the cost of living when you're talking about tax issues. So according to researchers at Stony Brook University, if you have a disability, it costs you 28% more to live as compared to someone without that disability. Hidden cost of living with a disability: housing, because maybe you have to physically alter the home. Renting is not an option because the landlords are not always eager to lower the height of the cabinets or widen the doorways or whatever it may be, because these rental homes are older. I don't know if you'd have to look at this. I'm not sure. I don't know if they'd have to make some kind of accommodation, but renting is not always an option. So you've got increased housing costs. Okay. Transportation, special assistance may be required. So if you live in a small town, those services might not be available. But in large towns like Miami and Los Angeles, the buses they have wheelchair accessible buses that you can travel on. Not in small towns. Okay. Food and grocery deliveries add to the cost. So what happens if you have a special diet? Maybe you have GERD, and so you have to be very careful about what you eat. Okay. Daily necessities, convenience fees like Instacart and delivery service. You've got to wait on your delivery versus if you didn't have the disability, you could jump in your car, run up to the store, get what you wanted, and you'd be back. So you don't have to wait. Okay. You've got accessibility devices and healthcare. You got canes, rollators, electric wheelchairs, prosthetic limbs, all of those things. And guess what? Insurance doesn't always pay 100% for those items. Okay. You've got daily home care services, personal care services, house cleaning, cooking, things of that nature. So if you're disabled and you can't clean your home, you have to pay somebody to come in and do that. Self-care versus medical care. Boy, I tell you what, I really love infrared spas. If you haven't ever done one, you need to do one. But somebody who has a disability might not be able to enjoy that infrared spa like I do because it's not handicap accessible. Okay? So if you've got a service-connected disability, you can't get in and out of the spa. But really and truly, my number one reason why the CBO proposal is so wrong regarding veterans with service-connected disabilities, because they were injured on the job. They were injured while serving our country, sometimes by the enemy, sometimes by our own government, okay? But they deserve every single dime, okay? If you had that same person who was injured on the job in a civilian way, a civilian job, then they have the opportunity for workers' compensation, okay? And they also have the opportunity to possibly sue their employer. You don't have that as a veteran. Look, veterans, you put your lives and your health on the line to keep us safe. And we don't need to abandon you in your hour of need. When you came home, you still face long-term health risks from your service. Agent Orange, so you got cancers, burn pits, respiratory diseases, asbestos, PTSD, all kinds of different injuries. So you deserve your compensation, okay? Yeah, there are veterans who are worse off than you, and they need their compensation also. Getting VA disability benefits will not take benefits away from another deserving veteran, because you all deserve it, because you sacrificed for us. Just because you left active duty years ago doesn't mean that it's too late to file a service-connected injury claim. So as a disabled veteran, I recognize that your perception as being not deserving by the public and politicians, but you shouldn't have that negative perception of receiving what you are entitled to. I mentioned this earlier, but hey, go to this video. The government is trying to reduce your VA benefits. In that video, I talk a little bit more in depth about that CBO report as giving Congress options to reduce the budget by reducing veterans' benefits. So until next time, you be blessed.